The first room shows us the phenomenon of Moshe Vorobeichic, who was a Polish Jew raised in Vilnius. This is where he began his artistic studies, but what really made him a modern artist who made an international career in the 1930s was going through the Bauhaus school. Bauhaus was a German school for art, craft, and design established in 1919. It quickly became famous as the best modern school for artists who wanted to work either as architects or as designers. This was where Moshe Vorobeichic arrived in 1927 and where he completed 3 semesters of a preparatory course under such artists as Laszlo Moholy-Nagy, Józef Albers, or Wasily Kandinsky. And that was where he discovered photography for himself. This first room shows us what kind of photographer he was after going through the Bauhaus school and after courses with Laszlo Moholy-Nagy. When Vorobeichic learns modern photography is also the moment when photography experiences an immense boom. On the one hand, because available cameras are increasingly cheaper and lighter, materials become more light-sensitive, so photography becomes very broadly available. On the other hand, this is because market demand for photography grows, the market of illustrated press develops considerably, and there is a need for people who can provide images for the press. Very often these people were artists who wanted to be painters, sculptors, or architects, but also dabbled in photography. Reportage or magazine photography was not professionalized at the time, and practically anyone with any connections in the illustrated press could do it. That was the case with Vorobeichic, but we will discuss this later in other rooms. Here we can see his first modern photos, which he took mostly in Paris. Paris was a great love of his. When he studied at Bauhaus in Dessau, he went on vacation to Paris and fell head over heels in love with the city, and decided that he absolutely must live there and that was where he wanted to continue his education. In 1929, he moves to Paris and begins to frantically photograph the city. He does it using what I would call an alphabet of modern photography, which means he frames his shots from high above or from down below. He often composes the frame at an angle which makes the image dynamic. He makes extreme close-ups and photographs the city in a way typical for photographers who underwent various avant-garde schools. He takes dozens of photos and uses them as a basis for an incredible book which we can see here, to the right from the entrance. We can see the original in the cabinet on the wall, and the slideshow that displays its contents. This is a masterpiece of avant-garde photography, and a masterpiece in terms of early photo books. A book without text, except for a short introduction by Fernand Léger, who was in fact Vorobeicic's teacher. Other than that, it contains only photographs and edited photographs at that. Every centerfold that we see is vibrant because it is not just a single photo, but one superimposed over another, 2 photos juxtaposed. It practically moves in front of our eyes. This book is very reminiscent of the 1927 film Berlin, Symphony of a Big City, and the Paris of Moshe Vorobeichic, who for this publication adopted the pseudonym Moi Ver, is a paused film about Paris. The book achieved great success, which opened Vorobeichic doors to other publishers and galleries. He exhibited his work in Paris at the time. On the walls, we can see other photographs from the same period. Let me draw your attention to this beautiful group that we can see to the left of the entrance to the room, with 4 photographs featuring factory chimneys in Paris, but each of them is a montage. We have superimposed photos because negatives had been superimposed. We have some photograms and reversed values, and as a result, photography, which at the outset is a documentation of a piece of the city, turns into a graphic and painterly composition, something dynamic, something with a sensory, not just a factual effect. In this room, we also show projections from negatives. This is certainly interesting to see what negatives made by Vorobeichic look like, and how they compare to the prints on these walls. Because very often prints that he made were not simply a single photo, but a photomontage, 2 or 3 superimposed negatives. And if we compare what we can see on the projection and what we can see on the wall, we can notice interesting relationships. Apart from photos, in the first room, we can see 2 non-photographic works, a tiny watercolor. It is the only surviving work from the period Vorobeichic was a Bauhaus student. We can see that he was inspired by Wassily Kandinsky's painting. The other one is a nude in which we can note the influences of Fernand Léger, his Parisian teacher. Both pieces are very rare and very valuable. Nothing else from that period survived. Vorobeichic moved around a lot at the time, between Vilnius, Paris, Dessau, Warsaw, and Tel Aviv. No wonder then that only these two small works remained.